Cutting shiplap siding on a table saw with no special tools. It can be done. I'll show you exactly what I'm doing, and then I'll walk through the process. That way, if we answer your questions right away, you can go somewhere else. This is the saw I am working with. It is an old direct drive Sears 10-inch Craftsman. And what I have is a 9-inch blade with a bunch of 7 1/4 skill saw blades stacked up next to it with a thick business card between each one, spacing them out. My supply material are these boards right here. This is stuff we cut on the mill. This one here happens to be an old snaggly dried out larch. These are old snaggly dried out firs, and then interspersed in there is some softer ponderosa pine. I have to process all of these boards the first time to give them one clean edge, because our mill, they just didn't dry straight enough. So I process them all to give one clean edge, and then when I run them through the saw, this big cheek cutter here cuts them to the proper width, and my stacked saw blades give me the dado and combined shiplap. I think any 10-inch saw would probably run this. You know, I can feel the saw is warm, so I'm pushing the old Sears. I mean, she's from the 90s. This is asking a lot from it. That's a lot of metal to be spinning. My son and I can push it through at about 32 boards an hour. Just not a whole heck of a lot. I think if I had a belt drive, you know, a big 2-horse cabinet saw, we could probably push them through maybe 35 an hour. And again, it's still not a whole lot. That's why you came to answer these questions, right? I do know, however, that this old girl is still going to allow me to push it harder than, say, a direct drive box store saw. So my finished face here is exactly 4 inches. So all of my figures are based off of 4 inches. If your board started out at 6 or 7 or 8, you'd have to have better quality lumber or trees than we did at the time, which is why our stuff is narrow. Your totals would be bigger than mine. So at 32 an hour at 4 inches, it works out to about 99 square feet of actual wall covering each hour, or about 3 sheets of plywood. So 3 sheets of T11 is essentially what I'm saving there. When I price these boards out, Lowe's and Home Depot, they don't have a 4-inch. Lowe's did have a 5.5. And so since most of mine are about 9 feet long, a Lowe's 5.5 was $11. So I figure these are about $9 equivalent, or about $288 worth of stuff. That said, Lowe's did have their faux rustic finish, and it added quite a bit to it. Is it worth it for you? I have no idea. Right now, I have more time than money, and it's kind of simple, mindless work, and it's going okay. You know, I have my son. He definitely speeds it up for me. So I have them all staged right here. I begin passing it through the saw, take it, flip it over, pass it through a second time. He then takes them outside and stacks them. It does mean I have to handle each board 3 separate times, but I only have to stack them twice. There is the first run of processing. If you ended up with better lumber, straighter cuts, you might be able to get away with it. I didn't. First run of processing where I have to go down the sides, and then we process it the second time, but there's no stacking in between. Having done this a lot, I can tell you the stacking in between adds a substantial amount. So we've been experimenting with a couple of different versions of this. We started out with your more traditional stacked dado cutters. These are 6-inch. I have no idea where the set came from, and I had to drill them out to 5/8. I don't have the cheeks because the steel in the actual saw blade portion was simply too hard. This I could then put these alongside a 7¼ inch blade. It was a lot less for the saw to spin. The saw processed considerably faster. But when these big honkers smashed into this rock hard splintery wood, I ended up with an awful lot of damage, and I ended up with splinters getting embedded in my hands. And you know, I mean, sure, you put on safety glasses, but when something sticks in your forehead, it's time to rethink it. So we switched to this. I get way less damage, which means I get fewer boards that end up with spots getting cut out of them. The other thing we experimented with early on was tongue and groove, and if I was doing inside work, I still would do tongue and groove. That also had 4 passes, so you had the 2 passes to get the edges straight, and then 2 passes to put the tongue and groove on. In terms of actual investment, I was able to find in my random collections of crap that I have inherited from a variety of interesting people over the years, half of these skill saw blades. Half of the skill saw blades that were the right diameter. So then I had to go to the store and take my old blades and find ones that match. So I bought the cheapest ones I could find. That was those 3 Irwins. I think they were $12 a piece, $13 a piece. So, excuse me, I'm into this 36 bucks. If you had to buy all of them, you'd probably be into it closer to 80. But if you got a 10-inch saw, you probably already have a 10-inch blade, so you don't need to buy one of those. I'm only running the 9 because I have it, and it would just be an extra 1/2 inch sticking up that I didn't need. More blade in the wood and more bad stuff to maybe bump into. Speaking of reason why I stopped, look at that. That's the kind of crap that was coming out of those cutters. And there's one stuck in the ceiling. Oh, yeah. So that's why I switched to these. Much happier with it. Yes, it's a touch slower, but it more than makes up for it in less shattered wood. Also, I don't scream like a girl quite as often, which is good. So there it is. That is how we have cut, gosh, we're probably over 1,000 linear feet so far. So far 1,000 linear feet of probably close to like 6,000, 7,000 total. But it doesn't really cost me anything. I'm using lumber. These are dead trees that we salvaged off the mountain.
Some of those are more than 50 years old.
Yes. This is sort of a dry area of Montana, so as long as they lay on those rocks, they really don't go bad. So we go up and we jimmy them down. There's where the kid's been stacking. Jimmy them down and then salvage it and then put it back to use. So that's awesome. Unrelated, but if you ever wanted to do that shuguban, so I got a section of the house for doing in the shuguban stuff. I like the look. It's pain in the ass in its own special way. There you go. This is essentially the information I was looking for from a fella who had about the same level of skills, ability, and equipment that I did when I went into trying to figure out, is this even worth it? Is it worth it for you? I don't know. Do you have more time than money? Do you have access to free boards? If you had to start by buying those things and the non-Shiplap, like figure $6 a piece, and then you process them, you're better off just buying the Shiplap. But, you know, if you got the wood and you got the time, there you go, past self. Here is the information for you to make your choice. We all know you're a cheap bastard, so you're just going to do this anyways. So start saving up blades.